Hello, everyone, and welcome to the launch of the Australia-India InnovEd Forums, and in the first forum in this series. I'm Associate Professor Priya Rangan, Principal Consultant for Government Projects at the Australia-India Institute. I'm speaking today from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. I also pay my respects to all Indigenous people joining from anywhere who may be joining this webinar. We're proud to be partnering with EduGrowth and the International Institute of Information Technology, Bangalore, for the InnovEd series, where experts from both countries will discuss digital learning trends, challenges, and opportunities. The series includes 3 online discussions and 2 roundtables in Melbourne and Delhi. In this inaugural webinar, our expert panel will explore the topic of enhancing learning outcomes in Australia and India, the role of e-learning. I will soon invite our moderator to lead the discussion, but first I would like to introduce the CEO of the Australia-India Institute, the Honourable Lisa Singh, to provide more insights into this event series and the Institute's work in the education sector. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Priya, and hello everyone joining us from Australia, from India, from wherever you are today. It is very much a pleasure for me to welcome you all to this very first Australia-India InnovEd Forum. As Priya said, this is a series, and today we kick off our first one. Australia and India, with their very diverse education ecosystems, both offer unique perspectives and solutions to issues of joint importance. And that is why we at the Australia-India Institute are very excited to launch this new series to explore the power of digital advancements in higher education and how both countries can benefit from sharing their experiences and insights on this important topic. In terms of the Australia-India Institute, since our inception in 2008, we have very much focused on forging a stronger education relationship between Australia and India. Our education research reports, analyses, and knowledge sharing activities all aim to promote understanding of each other's country's education sector, and also to launch opportunities for collaboration and engagement. Our work spans across key topics of mutual interest, including skills development, work-integrated learning, and innovative education trends. We're very grateful for the support we receive from the Australian Government Department of Education for enabling us to play a critical role in strengthening the learning, skilling, and research engagement between our 2 countries. In that, I'd like to acknowledge Vanessa Lapthorne, the Assistant Secretary for International Engagement Branch from the Department of Education, for joining us today for this important initiative. I'd also like to extend my thanks to our partners, EduGrowth and the International Institute of Information Technology, Bangalore. Both are leading players in their respective countries, promoting and advancing learning through technology and collaborating with entrepreneurs, with policymakers, and with the tech sector itself. The Institute has previously collaborated with EduGrowth and with IIITB in 2019 when we ran our Victoria India EdTech workshops. So it's very much fantastic to be able to be partnering once again with these very important organisations who are very experienced in this field for this virtual conversation on innovative education. So with that, thank you for joining this very first of our InnovEd forums today. I do look forward to hearing from our expert panel members and the insightful discussions that will unfold as part of this Australia-India InnovEd Forum series. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, I'd like to invite Vanessa Lapthorne, Assistant Secretary, International Engagement Branch, the Australian Government Department of Education, to share a few words of support. Vanessa.
Thank you, Professor Rangan, and for the warm welcome. And I would like to extend this thanks to the Australia-India Institute and to the Honourable Lisa Singh for your initiative in convening this forum. So as Lisa and Professor Rangan mentioned, my name's Vanessa Lapthorn. I'm the Assistant Secretary of the Engagement Branch in the Australian Government's Department of Education. So our portfolio is responsible for leading on Australia's bilateral engagement with aims to progress cooperation on education and research. It's a real privilege for me to join this group today, given everyone's passion and focus on maintaining a strong relationship between Australia and India through education. I want to emphasise that education partnerships and business-to-business linkages, such as those that the Australia-India Institute is driving through this forum, are crucial in supporting our bilateral relationship to continue growing. The Department of Education is very passionate about maintaining these relationships and the mutual benefits they offer to both our nations. The department looks forward to working closely with our counterparts in India to enhance the underlying policy and regulatory framework to support new opportunities for bilateral collaboration and sharing experiences of innovative ways of delivering education supports ongoing improvements in policies and settings for further education collaboration. This collaboration is made possible by the hard work and innovative thinking done by businesses and the higher education sector. Your experiences are so important in creating a way forward, and I'd like to thank all of you who are contributing to this important conversation. Like Lisa, I look forward to hearing from the panellists on the successes and challenges that are arising for Australian and Indian institutions when implementing e-learning resources and EdTech. These tools are creating new and innovative opportunities for what learning can look like virtually or in a classroom to the direct benefits of students. As Australian and Indian institutions continue to establish new partnerships, including campuses and online courses, the sustainable growth of the tools and resources that facilitate these ways of learning are crucial. I'd really like to thank you for your time today. And I will pass back to Professor Rangan to continue with today's session.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Now I'll hand over to our moderator and key partner for this series, David Linke, Managing Director of EduGrowth. David brings decades of experience leading education, technology, software, and services for businesses across Asia Pacific. David, over to you.
Thank you so very much, Priya. And as Priya said, I lead EduGrowth. We are Australia's education technology industry hub, and we connect edtech leaders, education providers, and stakeholders committed to reimagining education in the digital world. We're delighted to be partnering with the Australia-India Institute and the International Institute of Technology, Bangalore, in this series, InnovEd, where we are going to look at various parts of the EdTech and innovation ecosystem. Today, we're kicking off the series looking at how higher education institutions in Australia and India are integrating digital education into their teaching and learning practices. I'm going to be joined by an amazing panel of experts discussing how they integrate technology into institutions whilst ensuring we consider the quality components of that. Today, we've got Hal Williams, Chief Development Officer from KeyPath Education, who is passionate about transforming students' life through education. At KeyPath, Hal focuses on expanding opportunity and my phone has just gone and I've just had to turn it off. Sorry about that one. Hal is focused on expanding opportunity to students using innovative online education delivery. We've got Govind Kumar, the President Working Professionals at Upgrade, where he brings 16 years of digital transformation experience from the e-commerce and retail sectors to the professional education offering at Upgrade, a leading Indian online education provider. We've got Sheila McCarthy, the Manager of Innovative Projects at Griffith University and a member of the executive at the Australian Council of Open and Digital Education. Her professional focus is delivering technology-enhanced learning experiences in the higher education sector. And last but not least, we have Professor Manekshi D'Souza is the PhD coordinator at the IIIT Bangalore, where she leads courses in technology testing alongside a research focus across software development, quality assurance space. So welcome Hal, Govind, Sheila, and Meenakshi. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, David.
All right.
Thank you,
I thought
David.
we
Hello,
might,
everyone.
yeah, I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I thought we might start with a little bit of scene setting and thinking about defining what is EdTech, because sometimes in this process, we all assume that we know what we mean when we talk about education technology. So I thought I might share a very simple slide that gives us a little bit of insight into the way that EduGrowth defines EdTech, so that we can use that as a launching point for where we go. So if we think about EdTech from an institutional perspective, there are really two reasons that you have EdTech in your environment. One is either to improve efficiency within your organization or to improve learning outcomes for learners. They're the two ways in which we define EdTech. So if you think about it, right in the core, the heart of this system is the things that students use every day. The teaching and learning objects, the content management, the things that they actually do work with. The next layer out is the learning management systems. How do we define, how do we package all of those learning objects together into a course? How do we then make sure that those courses are coherent and structured and well-defined? And then the next layer out is how do we get students into those courses? How do we provide support for them whilst they're there? How do we give them access to a well-rounded system and a well-rounded education? And right at the last piece is how do we pay people? How do we market the organization? How do we run the IT system? How do we turn on the lights? And so we go from admin into student into learning into the core of it being the content learning management systems. And I get this question all the time. Whilst we have these 5 brackets, we also put a number of subsectors in there to give people a bit of understanding. I won't bother reading that out for you. You can read that for yourself. I will make one point, which is around the consultants. Within the Australian education technology sector, we see most EdTech companies actually focus on selling their products and solutions to existing institutions, so universities, TAFEs, and school providers. So therefore, the consultants that help in the strategy, the learning design, the implementation, all of that digital transformation work are important, and we keep them a little bit separate. So that gives us a little bit of context. In the core of it, teaching and learning, then we start to get out to learning management, then we get out to student, and we get to admin. I thought it was a nice way for us to begin a conversation when we're starting to think about what is technology and her enhanced learning and so forth, which leads me to a really nice, simple question. We'll start really easily and we'll get a little bit more involved. Sheila, if I was going to ask you a question and ask you this really simple one is, what do we mean by e-learning and how does that differ from EdTech in the way that I've put that context? And feel free to add your own definition of EdTech as well, if you like.
Probably will, David. Thank you. Look, at its essence, e-learning is around the delivery of online content, communication, assessment, collaboration experiences. The beauty of e-learning is that it can be applied across multiple modalities. So it's that actual digital content being delivered, augmenting campus models like flipped learning through to fully online models, MOOCs, facilitated or not. Whereas EdTech as an arena or a concept is really our primary enabler, and when we look at what you just showed us there in terms of EdTech, you can see how it enables all those various areas as well, and primarily for e-learning as well. So in practical terms, these are the systems and tools that we use to facilitate and deliver e-learning. But I think stronger than that, in the context of enhanced learning outcomes and outside of that administration systems and tools within that EdTech ecosystem, we need to be considering that EdTech is a hybrid of educational theory and, technological innovation. At the end of the day, it's kind of an intersect between teaching and technology, helping us to deliver that e-learning in the most pedagogically sound, accessible, inclusive and effective manner. So yeah, that's really how we see it. E-learning is kind of the outcome. EdTech is the primary enabler. and the fuller context.
I like this idea of differentiating by modality, not by what's being delivered, but we'll talk about that in just one second. I'm going to bounce over to Hal and Govind, and both of you work at organizations that help education providers move to a digital delivery model. So again, an early question that popped into my mind is modality of instruction, that is being on campus or online, a different learning product?
I'm happy
Hal?
to jump in, David,
Yeah,
because my
Hal.
answer quickly would be absolutely. That not only is delivery different, but the design of the product as well. And product meaning the classroom, the degree, the non-accredited product we're talking about, and the experience outside of it, that all goes hand in hand. And I don't think you can articulate the design of a fully online product or an e-learning, let's use that experience, without really knowing the target audience and what they expect. And that's very different than a classically a face-to-face learning environment. And I think the second part is delivery component around that is also important, like the resource and the capital constraints, which might require an entirely different model than one that's bound by place and buildings and different types of access. So yeah, I'm happy to go into each of those categories, but I think knowing the target audience definitely defines back the delivery and the design. And we can talk about all the difference from asynchronous to non-synchronous. Small classes are large MOOCs.
We'll come back to that one in a second.
Yeah.
We'll come back to it in a second because I think it's a really interesting a point that you make. But the same question for you, Govind. Do you see the product that we deliver to a student in an online learning environment different to what we would deliver to them in a face-to-face environment?
Yeah, thanks, David. And I agree with Howell to a large extent. The modality of instruction can, in my mind, can indeed be considered a different learning product in several key aspects. And like Howell also pointed out on a couple of them, the first and foremost would be the delivery method. On campus is very different from online. On campus involves face-to-face interactions, immediate feedback, and a structured physical environment. Online mainly relies on digital platforms, virtual interactions, often a mix of live and recorded sessions over there. Second is another important aspect for me would be how these two modalities are different learning product would be flexibility of the product. On campus requires physical presence, and sometimes the opportunity cost of learning is also high, where someone has to give full time to that on-campus program. Online brings a lot of flexibility, especially for the working professionals, where they don't have to sacrifice their job and they have all the flexibility in terms of time and location. And this flexibility actually makes education accessible to a broader range of students.
Let's pause for a second, Govind. I want to talk about the audience in just a second, because I think there's something really interesting in that one. It's a whole interesting conversation, but I'll summarize what you said. I think you said it is a different product because the audience is different, the way you deliver it is different, and the way you engage is different, right?
Yeah.
All right. I actually see that Meenakshi has joined us. So welcome along, Professor.
Yeah, thank you, and apologies for the delay.
No, that's all good. No problems. I just wanted to again ask you to chime in and give us a bit of an idea from your perspective of how you define e-learning in your institution at the IIIT Bangalore.
Yeah, e-learning, in my opinion, is, as it was rightly discussed, not the same as classroom learning. You use any kind of resource available electronically. It could be pre-recorded videos that you obtain in hard disk drive, or predominantly videos that are available from internet, along with online resources, guiding material, transcribed material, and assignments that are delivered, submitted, and evaluated online. That would be e-learning for me, where learning goes on at their own pace or at a pace defined by the host organization.
So now I have to ask you a question, because that's the obvious question. We've got product A on campus. We've got product B online. Well, now I'm a hybrid human being. So sometimes I'm on campus, and sometimes I'm online. Am I getting a different product now, or am I in the same course? Do I think about this differently, Meenakshi, in your environment? Am I different? Am I a third category of person I need to think about?
Yeah, currently we don't have hybrid delivery models. Either you're completely online for a particular course, or you're completely in person. You clearly cannot take a course in a hybrid way.
That's what you're doing in your environment at the moment?
Yes.
Is that a constraint? I think there's a whole nother webinar on that one. There's a whole nother webinar. I'm going to pause for one moment because I actually want to go back to something Hal said, because I think we should not leave it unchallenged, which was, I think you said to me, when building an online tool, we need to completely rebuild. We need to think about our audience better, and we need to rebuild the course. Did I take that correctly, or am I misquoting you?
I think you
So we
could
need
say
to
that.
rebuild the course. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right. So you said that. So now
The
Hal?
outcomes are the same, but how you get there is a little bit different.
Oh, okay. That was the question I was going to ask, because you were suggesting that we may not be doing the digital transformation we need in our face-to-face environment
Yeah.
when that we are doing on our online environment.
I think that's a nuanced question depending who you interview on that one, but I see them as going hand in hand, right? That the innovation or the path in the online is also the virtuous circle of helping face to face. And I would argue, I'd love to come back to that middle part maybe later on, of the flexibility of the hybrid back and forth. But if the outcome is the same, it's just the journey of the product to get there.
Let's talk about that hybrid model now, because I think it's a really interesting point that's come up. So I'll ask you, Sheila, first, because I think you have a really interesting role at Griffith University, which sort of, if I understand it correctly, you're almost, for want of a better term, a coach helping all people think about what good online learning looks like and providing great resources. Would you like to comment about, are we building a different learning object for the face-to-face and the online student, and maybe even this hybrid component?
Yeah, look, what I would say is some things you've got to look at as standard. And I think Hal was kind of getting to this point. Pedagogy, good pedagogy is good pedagogy. So if you're meeting the learning outcomes, you're providing human-centric learning experiences, at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter what modality it is. But to answer your question about redesign, I can tell you absolutely yes. It takes a bucket load of work to actually have a look at a course that was once, fully on campus and everyone's engaged and everyone knows how to collaborate and do that. And then you've got all these other types of modes coming on. I mean, it's pretty complicated. We've got, institutions that are trying to break down from about 12 different modes, on campus, online, mixed mode, hybrid mode. So there's all that sort of stuff. But in regard to ed tech, it's so different. It's so different because we have to then counter for things like digital equity. We have to counter for, how do people behave online and in those particular contexts and all those sort of things. So a lot of the same stuff, isn't there, Hal? But there's an awful lot of work in between, because the trick is to make learners feel engaged, no matter the mode.
Awesome. Yeah, I would agree with that one as well, which again comes back to something that you mentioned before for us, Gavin, which is really around audience. And I'm going to take you a little step further and ask you to give us some insights on what you think students need when thinking about an online model. And I guess in my head, I'm thinking, are they demanding something new when they're thinking about online delivery of their course versus going on campus?
Sure. So David, we have a very strong connection with our learners and alumni base, and we reach out to them frequently to understand their needs and requirements. In terms of learning experience, there are three things which come up very strongly when we speak to our learners. The first one is flexibility. Our learners demand a good mix of recorded and live content. And this demand comes very strongly from working professionals. This flexibility allows them to go through the course at their comfort in terms of time management. The second important point, which you highlighted also some time back, is hybrid experience. This is one of the topmost asks of all our learners. They look forward to short immersion sessions of 3 to 7 days in a physical setup, once or twice during the program duration. That helps them get the on-campus vibe, live interactions with the faculties, and also an opportunity to network with other participants of the program. And the third and the last one, which I would say would be from a new experience point of view, would be industry-linked project-based learning. The learners who come to us, they expect project-based learning where they can solve real-life case studies or work on projects which are industry-linked. This helps them implement the learnings in a real-life setup. So these three would be the aspects for new learning experience in my mind.
Okay. I thank you. It gives us a great insight. And I guess also, Meenakshi, you have experience with really large scale, right? Like when we start thinking about online learning in Australia and then we start thinking about online learning in India, the scale changes. Can you give us a little bit of insights to some of the numbers of learners that you're pushing through your courses that you've been doing online? I think it's the National Micro-Credential Platform we were talking about during the preparation, but I may have the name wrong.
Right. So in India, we do have a government-backed, nearly free open source learning platform called the National Portal for Technology-Enabled Learning. This is specifically for engineering
National
courses.
Portal, that's it.
Right. It's for specifically engineering courses, but it gets bundled into a larger pool called SWAYAM. SWAYAM in Hindi just means by your own, on your own kind of stuff, which basically has recorded videos in this. So if you see the scale there, we're talking about hundreds of courses grouped into various engineering disciplines in 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks delivery models. And at the end of it, you pay a small fee to write a write an exam and get a certificate. And there are weekly assignments which also count towards the certification if you want to get it free. And the model they sell gets certified by the IITs, which are institutions of higher learning, which are highly ranked in India. And the scale that we're talking about is something like lakhs, 100,000 learners, multiples of 100,000 learners. I teach a course on software testing, which is essentially an algorithmic course. And I've been teaching it, record once and run it again every year with newer assignments, newer modules, small revisions. And I've been doing it 7 times. And across these 7 times, once a year, I've had 62,000 upwards learners registered for it. This clearly is not the scale that compares to a classroom physical delivery model.
Yeah. Well, I would like to see the classroom that fits 62,000 students in it, but it won't be the top of my mind to go and see that course and that room and try and work out how you're going to get everyone to see the screen in the back there. But back to you for a moment, Sheila. Alongside your day job, you're also on the executive at the Australian Council of Open and Digital Education, and which is, in my understanding, well, firstly, give us a little insight to who they are, and then I'll ask you a question about quality and how you measure it.
Sure, David. Look, ACODE is the Australasian Council on Open and Digital Education. We're a peak body, so we actually do have some influence around policy. We have an institutional membership of around 46 higher educational institutions, and part of the charter, if you like, is very much around technology engaged learning and enhanced learning. That's really our jam, if you like to think about it that way. And of course, providing out mechanisms to those institutions that help them benchmark and balance some of those quality indicators as they go through. We provide heaps of professional development opportunities for those who work on the ground, particularly supporting academics. So a lot of people who are in roles similar to me, or the teams, educational designers, learning designers as well, really take up on the professional development and workshops and things that we provide as well. We also write white papers based on some of the research and data that we're able to collect through our colleagues as well. And we provide TEL talks and things like that as well, which allows people to actually just openly speak about the ed tech realm and in a free and confidential kind of matter. So we really...
Can I jump in there, because there's a question that I wanted to ask you, which was, with all of that context, can you give us some idea or comment on the quality of education and how we should be measuring it, and whether modality should be considered in the measurement of quality education? Because you said something really interesting right up front. Good pedagogy is good pedagogy. How do I know it's good pedagogy?
That's right. Well, to know it's good pedagogy, you have to be able to, you know, review and measure at the bottom level. So really what my statement to that would be, quality matters at all levels of e-learning. So if we think about e-learning, the way it's delivered, and measures should be triangulated, because when we look at quality, particularly in the, you know, in the Australian context, for example, we're looking at a governmental level, we're looking at an institutional level, we're looking at course and program level, and then we're getting down to the learning activity level, which is, you know, at its essence, probably one of the most important, but it's right down the bottom of that thing. So, you know, up the top, we've got our text governance, we've got the AQF frameworks, we've got things like that. And institutions, of course, are using things called SET and SEC, so student evaluations of teaching and student evaluations of course, to inform those. But one of the most important things to note is that there's a real risk to that, David. You know, that universities are actually just using that type of data, and it's very rudimentary. You know, so part of what ACO does is try to extend that by providing other opportunities at the institutional level, which is a little bit lower. So, you know, that benchmarking we were talking about covers a lot of areas, and we have people coming in every 2 years to benchmark against each other. One of the most important things that our members say that they get from that type of quality, you know, comparison, if you like, is that, you know, it ensures continuous improvement. That's one of the most important things, of course, and that they can leverage some of the shared strategies and tactics that other institutions have actually used before. And the program and course level, of course, every institution's got its own kind of program and course review cycles, you know, where
But I may be missing it. You may have already said it, Sheila, so I apologise if you did.
Yeah.
But are we considering modality in that process or not?
At the learning activity design level, absolutely, David,
Okay.
yeah. By the
Okay.
time you get down, and absolutely, you know, absolutely at the program and course level too. So
Yep.
at the moment, you know, there are frameworks around like Quality Matters, you know, people will be familiar with that. It's quite a global kind of framework for course development. There's also TALIS framework, which is, you know, quite recent if you think about it, the last couple of years. That one's designed specifically to assist assessment and accreditation of online learning. So once you can see now that we're actually really starting to dig down to that, because when you look at online learning, you make a very good point. At what point is online learning going to segment, you know, out to those various sort of methods or modes, if you like, or modalities? But
Okay.
look, at the end of the day, a good learning activity is a good learning activity, as we say.
Awesome. Can I ask you, Meenakshi, to also comment on the same thing? How are you measuring the quality of the learning that you're delivering in your course with 62,000 or 63,000 students?
So the videos are reviewed, peer reviewed by another person, another professor, faculty competent in the area. They are transcribed in not only English to start with, but several Indian languages. And the assignments, the weekly assignments that we have to set, the final exams that they have to write, they all have very strict criteria. Like, for example, certain percentage of questions have to be direct recaps, certain percentage of questions have to have thinking, certain percentage of questions have to have deeper thinking, problem solving, and stuff like that. So and there is a committee that sort of reviews this, and for every question you choose what the course outcomes are, what you know, how the course objectives have been met. There are, you know, menus to be chosen. So there is a strict process that's followed to cater to scale and cater to variety of learners. When you're teaching thousands of them simultaneously, they're watching your videos. Not everybody might be at the same level of understanding, have the same background. So this ensures that a vast majority of them can follow, and of course those who excel would get the elite certification in the exam.
Okay, thank you very much. Hal, I might go to you because KeyPath has a global footprint and you work extensively across Asia Pacific, and I assume also into parts of Asia as well. And so I'm wondering if you can give us some insights onto what best practices we should be thinking about when building online programs.
Yeah, that's a big question, David. But I think I can summarize maybe some themes that we and that kind of best practice language that we circle on quite often. And I think if I could summarize it, it comes down to really getting clear on the student expectations, and that includes market expectations, even changing student and market expectations, and then frankly meeting them. It's really simple, but it's hard to do often in particularly institutional or slower moving educational environment. So getting clear on those. And then I think where we see the best practices coming are really out of those that where the institution is really aligned on its mission for what it's offering. So it could be deliver the best in world experience from India's top university or an Australian university, or it could be a different mission like expand access and scale, right? So I guess I say best practices, I think when institutions zero in on something really specific and align, quality is better, outcomes are better, just things that Sheila was speaking at before, it's much easier to kind of see the impact. And then the same themes of what Sheila was talking about together, engagement, right? Best practice on what's delivering on for students to feel connected and engaged. And that can come in many different ways. And how do you measure it? That would put us at the top of best practices. And again, the audience, is it a working professional or working adult that you're designing for? Or is it an 18-year-old on taking their first university or
But
tertiary education?
it is still learning, right? It still is learning. So we're not going to have we're not. It's not meant to be. Well, it's not entertainment. So it's still meant to be rigorous and hard, right? So sometimes we hear this thing, we need a Netflix of learning. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. It's still meant to be rigorous and
Getting
hard.
the basics right. I know that's not
Yeah.
sexy or innovative when you're asking me about best practices, but
Yes.
every day, if I could just see the just the basics right, like there would be so much, I think, progress just in terms of the student experience for that.
I got to ask you, I'm going to bounce to Sheila for a second because I'm going to ask her a question because she can answer this without having to worry about commercial reality and customers hearing it, how I'll let you off the hook. Sheila, so what happens if you watch this, you've got this video, you've got all the data and you find that Professor A's videos not really being watched very often and they stop 20% through the video. How do you have the conversation with Professor A to rebuild their video and rebuild their course to engage the learner?
Yeah, look, like everything, it's education. I mean, what we do is educate educators, at the end of the day. So when we're talking about e-learning, video is an imperative here. I mean, without video, there's pretty much we're back to distance and writing letters to each other, aren't we? So the importance for us is really getting to be able to speak to that academic, and even better if it's their entire teaching team, and offering some sort of professional learning or professional development, or just even sitting down and having a conversation about the best practices of use of video. Things like chunking, how long does attention last, So those little things are just so important when you get to the end of the day, because if you haven't put them in at the beginning, it's not going to happen at the end. You're not going to get to the end.
I'm actually reminded of the fact that we don't measure some of these things in the on-campus environment because we can't, right? Nobody's measuring that the student has 3 different devices and is not really listening to the lecture when they're sitting in the room, or was playing it at 3 times speed outside of the room. So sometimes we put a greater emphasis on that. Govind, I wanted to come to you because in your opening remarks, you said something really interesting to me, really around this hybrid learner and the hybrid model that you're building. And I think you basically were talking about this idea of how do we build real work experiences, how do we build community around this environment. So there are obviously lots of education providers with us today. What's the one thing you would want them to know about when building a course online first, and how would you build that with real world industry experience as the part of that conversation?
Sure, David. So the one thing that would be understand your learners first. It's the most important thing. While designing any program or course, that who is that learner, to which cohort or target group that learner belongs to. The requirement of the learners are very different depending on whether they are working professional or still a 18-year-old student. If they're working professional, then their work experience matters a lot while understanding their requirements. Someone with a 0 to 3 years of experience would have a very different need versus someone who has a 10 years of work experience. The domain in which the learner, the second thing is basically the domain in which the learner is working is another important parameter while designing any program. For example, the course pedagogy changes a lot for tech domain versus non-tech domains. A culmination of all these parameters defines the outcomes that the specific cohort of learner is looking for, and accordingly the course can be designed. Like many a times when we reach out to our learners, the specific outcome actually differs from a early jobber or with a lesser experience to someone with 10 years or more of experience. Like the um initial experience, 0 to 3 years old age group, requires a transition that I need a new job or I want to change my domain. That's why I am doing this course. Someone with a 5 to 10 years of experience is seeking for acceleration probably in the same job. They don't want to change the domain because they have already reached to a mid level of seniority or maturity over there, and they are looking for professional acceleration, that can I do my job, current job better and grow faster in my career. And the folks who are 10 to 15 years of experience or more than that, they are not looking for any of these. They are actually looking for professional confidence or the subject matter expert kind of positioning in their ecosystem, that okay, I want to be a position of authority where I am. So just to if I have to give one line answer to your question, it would be understand your learners first to build any online program, and accordingly the program can be designed.
I would think that's true of any program, regardless of modality. Hopefully, we are understanding the learner and their cohorts. But thank you very much, Govind. I'm very conscious of a couple of things. I'm conscious of that I could go for hours, but apparently we have to finish at 4, which means we've got about 15 minutes left. And I'm reminded that if you want to ask a question in the audience, you've got either the chat or the Q&A. And if you ask them, we'll come to them in a moment or two. I want to actually try to deal with an incredibly big question now. And I'm going to ask it from you first, Meenakshi, which is, how is online learning perceived in the Indian context, the community, society, the employer? Is the online learner, because I note that you don't have this hybrid model, right? So I'm wondering whether or not the employer and the society considers online learning as rigorous and valuable as an on-campus experience.
Yeah, for individual certifications, like getting certified in Python programming, getting certified in IoT, individual certifications, online courses are valued a lot. There is a massive revision that I observed in the past 2-3 years, where both young graduates and others are not pursuing a master's degree, but going for individual certifications. I finished a certificate online from such and such a platform on such and such a topic. That's given a lot of value. At least it's supposed to up your profile, an individual student's profile, a fresher's profile, a young employer's profile. And the other important thing that I've realized, at least for the national portal, is that the reach is vast. So let's say somebody from a tier 2, tier 3 city, who doesn't have access to a large city to come here. I have seen this NPTEL courses being delivered where the entire, let's say you're pursuing a bachelor's degree in engineering, which is a very common degree to pursue in India. The entire class, physical class, is put together in a room with conferencing facilities, and this online course is run for them. And the whole class writes the online exam, and then you get credits as a part of your classroom course. So the reach is vast. A person from a tier 2, tier 3 city takes pride in finishing an online certification program from an IIT. Whereas as far as diploma, getting a full-fledged diploma, full-fledged degree is concerned, people do go to private service providers like Upgrad, other firms who can pay and do. And recently, very recently, 2 of the IITs have started a full-fledged online degree program. The first batch is yet to graduate. Okay. 4-year degree program.
Okay, so individual courses well received, broader courses it's an emerging market is sort of the way that I've taken that. Govind, I wanted to ask you a similar sort of question from around the Indian context. What do you think is motivating a student in India to study online? Are they assessing the quality of the course? Are they assessing sort of the outcome? Are they connecting price to career change? Like what's the motivator and the driver there?
Yeah, so David, I would say that all of these actually, Indian students are value conscious, and I would like to clarify this. They are not looking for cheaper programs, but they are looking for good value for money. They look for flexibility, they look for
Okay.
affordability, they look for flexibility, they look for affordability, they look for credibility, and of course, outcomes. Now, these are the main motivations behind choosing online over offline. Online is able to give them flexibility, and we have spoken a lot about the kind of flexibility that a working professional gets. Online gives them affordability also and very good value for money. They assess quality. Assessing quality from a learner's point of view is slightly tricky. They assess quality through credibility of the program, that how credible the program is or the course is. They look for credible partnership of institutions, industry bodies coming together, and that's a good proxy for quality for them. And the last one, outcome, which
Okay.
is equally important for them, is also like this keeps on changing a bit depending on the learner cohort, and they look for different kind of outcomes related to professional confidence or acceleration in their career or a better job opportunity. So all four, I would say.
Okay. Oh, okay, awesome. Hal, same question to you. In the Australian context, what is the typical online learner look like, and what are they seeking?
Yeah, without what Govind said. So particularly right now in the Australian market, the fully online learner is mostly a working professional, aged about 32 to 45, but that's creeping down every year. So younger and younger folks are working full time straight in. So that's an interesting design challenge as well. But the exact same thing. I know accessibility sounds trite, but that is it. And it comes back in student feedback constantly. I was able to attend X university or X brand I never thought I could. And now that's available to me, or I was able to do X course or program from a rural and remote location that I never thought was possible for like a clinical degree or something like that. So that's certainly where the market is. And in Southeast Asia, the same actually, particularly for us in Malaysia and Singapore.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm conscious of the time, so we're going to go through a rapid fire set of questions from the audience, because I think there's one or two that are incredibly interesting and worth having a look at first, which is, I wanted to begin with one really easy one, which was, and I'm going to go to you, I think, Sheila. It feels like it feels right into the domain of what you do for a living, which is when we come so close to recognizing that lecturing is not the best way to teach, why is online learning embracing video lectures as the dominant approach?
Oh God, are they?
Feel free to attack the premise of the question that you think that it's not the case, but that's the question we've got. So that's a question we get to answer.
I totally get it. Look, everything is in transition, isn't it, when you think about it? And look, I can speak of my own organization here as an example, because in 212, for example, we had a blended learning strategy. So I think these modalities, these modes, these ways of getting it together are sort of evolving as we go along. And so we're going to have this kind of legacy thing. And it actually worries me a bit, because sometimes I think it is tied up with the ed tech component of a system. When I look at my university, we've got lecture capture, for example, is everywhere. So it's an easy, efficient way for them to deliver. What we need to do in our job is actually to find them more innovative ways to do better practice and make that delivery more engaging, create senses of belonging, and get rid of.
We've still got that re-engineering and redesign to be done, right? That's what I'm hearing there. So awesome. All right, let's continue on rapid fire again here. Meenakshi, let me ask you, what do you think of the potential of virtual reality to help engage remote learners in a different learning style?
Maybe more interactive, I would say. Like, for example, you could use it to, you know, create these pause and think moments in a video which is pre-recorded, and see if virtual reality could, you know, instantly answer questions that the learners pose. Otherwise, I don't see an immediate use apart from this.
Okay, awesome. All right, I'm jumping between the chat box and the Q&A to find the most interesting questions here. So let me just go back here. Let's ask you, Hal. How do you think Australia and India can work together to deliver impactful learning outcomes for learners? And where do you think is the biggest opportunity between the two countries?
Yeah, I think there's opportunity to really have more in-depth conversations, explorations between learning at scale in India and what Australia can learn from what's worked and what hasn't in that space, and then maybe the vice versa realm of more of a maybe intense, smaller class size or a pedagogical approach, and what are the benefits for that for particular sets of learners. I think that would be a really interesting set to go, as well as probably diving a little bit more into the STEM space and what each are using in terms of tools, technologies, interesting pedagogies for both of those scenarios, massive scale, small and instructor-led online courses. That's what my personal interest is, and then plenty more in terms of products, similarities, and outcomes.
And Govind, the exact same question to you, because I think Upgrade has a unique footprint across the region, including India and Australia. What do you think that we could, from an Australian context, learn from India, and what do you think India could learn from Australia in online learning delivery, and what quality might look like?
Yeah, so a lot of collaborations are already on, and one of the key things which Upgrade is also doing, and we were talking about the blended form of learning, where we have come up with a very innovative program where a 2 years master's program, 1 year can be done in an online setup from India, and another year can be the learner can choose to go to any Australian university over there. So it's a very good, healthy mix of online and offline. Somewhere superior to hybrid, I would say, because in hybrid, it's a 3 to 7 days on-campus session. It's a proper blended program. And that can be one of the big opportunity how Australia and India can collaborate.
Awesome. Thanks very much. I'm just going to quickly check the chat box and see if there are any questions there that we haven't got to. I think we've got to most of them. India work together. Where do you think is the big opportunity? What does the panel think of VR? We've done that. We've done the lecturing one. What's the potential of EdTech for EdTech companies? Yeah, here we go. So nice question for you, Govind. Is there potential for EdTech companies like Upgrade and KeepPath to support public institutions in India to develop infrastructure and capability for digital education, for example, to improve efficiency of government platforms like, I assume it's a national platform for online learning? What requirements would need to be changed? Govind?
Yeah, of course, yes, and we are doing that at Upgrade. This is one of the streams at Upgrade where we associate very closely with some of the universities and work like an enabler for them. These universities are predominantly into offline setup, and they are well known in India and working in education since decades now. We come as a technology partner over there. We ensure that their reach increases towards tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, and the reach is like humongous over there. Like Professor Meenakshi was saying, that there are programs where thousands of learners enroll. We have certain programs where every year there are like, not at the scale of 60,000, but we have seen scales of 5,000, 6,000 learners in a cohort for these universities. So there is a very strong collaboration happening in India among proper universities and tech enablers like Upgrade.
Awesome. I think that I honestly could go on for a couple of hours with this panel. It has been a really exciting conversation this afternoon and this morning, wherever you're joining us. So Sheila, Hal, Govind, and Meenakshi, thank you so very much for being with us and sharing your deep insights on what's the opportunity that exists between Australia and India. How do we measure quality? What are the things we need to think about? Should we be thinking about different products? Should we be thinking about different learner cohorts? And so many more questions that run from that, which sort of really leads me to the audience that have joined us today. So thank you for attending today's forum on enhancing learning outcomes in Australia and India and the role of e-learning The panel's given us fantastic, valuable insights. Today's session has been recorded and will be made available on the Australia-India Institute website, and I think probably also emailed out to everybody that's come. I do encourage you to continue the conversation and to sign up for the next forum, which is the Digital Classroom, a Leadership Perspective. You can find the registration link's going to be in the chat now, and I assume we'll also email it out to you. And that brings us to the conclusion today. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the funding partners, the Australian Government Department, Australia India Institute for coordinating, the Institute of Information Technology Bangalore, and obviously EduGrowth. So thank you all for being here.